Hello, and welcome to today's family. I'm Dick Forbes.
And I'm Cindy Smith, and it is a pleasure to be in your home today as we cover some topics about today's families. Dick and I have been just enjoying doing this type of show for a while. Then we stopped. Life happened, and now we're back, a little older, a little thinner, but we're all just excited to be in your home to talk about things that might help you and your family and us and our families and the people that we coach or counsel. Dick has a great counseling ministry. That's his job. He does. And has been doing it for over 30 years.
33.
33 years. So he's a great counselor. If you need someone, you can look him up, call the church, find out how to get in touch with Dick Forbes.
Thanks.
All right, so we're going to be talking today, Dick, about circular arguments. I'll be honest, Dick, I've never really heard of this verbiage, circular arguments. What is that?
Well, just a simple definition. You think circle, and the argument just keeps going in a circle. That's all that is. And there's a reason why I think some people do like to keep it going. There's always that need to be right, to have the last word. And so it literally it's the dog chasing its own tail. It's getting nowhere. It's unproductive. It can be incredibly harmful to the relationship and hurtful because things get said. And so that literally, the circular argument is what it is. So
yeah, it just keeps going over and around and never ending, I guess, because the circle never ends.
Yeah. So today we just want to talk about, why do people do that? And it's not necessarily couples. It can be parent-child. It can be, an employer, employee, and siblings that just kind of keep the pot stirred and keep it going. And you may have some people like that in your life. And I think today will be helpful just to understand what's behind all that. Why? What do they get out of it, basically, for keeping the pot going?
Dick, just a curious question before we get started. In a circular argument, doesn't it take two, or is there just one that keeps it going?
A lot of times it's just one. It's even funny. You look, you've heard about people getting on Facebook, and there's just this back and forth and back and forth and back, or texting about whatever the issue may be, and it's back and forth and back, and nobody wins it, nobody does it. But a lot of times it is just, and that's a good question. A lot of times it is just one person that likes to keep it going. They have that great need to be right. They have that great need to have the last word in there. They don't want to look foolish. They don't want to look stupid. And so they try to stay in the up position the whole time.
Yeah, even if it's just them and perhaps another person, the person that keeps it going, and they don't want to look wrong or, in the weak area. So, but there's just them and another person.
Well, it can be more than one person, too. It can be one person stirring the pot with two or three other people. When they argue from the point that they're right. And I'm going to convince you that I'm right. And so it just ends up in this one-upmanship over and over again. And so couples argue from the standpoint that they're right. And they're constantly trying to convince the other person that they're right. But you think about it, a healthy couples, or whatever the relationship is, the context, will stop that and say, okay, help me understand where you're coming from. Explain to me why you're so, adamant and stuck in this one spot about this one particular thing. Because if somebody gives you the opportunity to make your case, you're going to make your case. But it's also meaning that person's willing to listen to it without just this back and forth kind of thing. So, arguing from that standpoint never has worked and it never will work. So. And that's what a lot of it keeps it going too. That absolute need to convince you, to browbeat you, to beat you over the head with the Bible until you kowtow that okay, you're right. And some people just finally get to the point of giving up and say, okay, you're right, and walk away from it,
even though they might not believe they're right.
Right.
Wow, this is going to be an interesting conversation. I hope that this will be helpful to someone out there that has maybe been introduced to circular arguments. Maybe you've had circular arguments and didn't know how to define them. Hopefully this will help you be educated, because we're all about healthy relationships.
Right.
Trying to figure out how to make relationships work. And this is an enemy of healthy relationships.
It is, I'm glad you said that, because the true enemy is not the other person. It's truly the devil wants to conquer and divide and break and divorce and destroy relationships that God has ordained.
Well, let's start. We've got some points here, and I hope that you're ready to get on the bus of circular arguments and learning more about them. Dick, we're talking about, it's about baiting the other person, like baiting them into a conflict, just to get them to have an emotional response.
Right, it is. And it creates defensiveness from the other person when they're baiting them. Why didn't you answer my 47th text earlier? Just this constant berating to get them engaged. And so literally they are fishing, and once they hook you, then they bring it in to get that defensiveness response from you, that anger response from you, that whatever their actions, well, why are you so defensive? You must be cheating on me, and so the person's denying, and if they're not cheating or anything, why won't you give me your passwords to everything? You're hiding something. And that's how they bait people into it, to get that anger, because then once the anger is given, or the defensiveness is given, it gives the baiter the ability to go into that victim mode. See, you're defensive, you're angry, you're up to something.
You're proving what I'm saying.
Right.
But they make the other person get
Right.
into that position by baiting them.
Right.
Wow.
And I would say defensiveness in a relationship is, John Gottman and his wife, he calls it one of the apocalyptic horsemen, when there's constant defensiveness in a relationship. And that's what this ends up happening too in these circular arguments that are there.
Wow. You ready to go to the second point there?
Let's do it.
So it's about allying. It's talking about fears of abandonment, losing control, feeling or appearing inferior, and or being exposed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the person who initiates this really, they're coming from a standpoint of fear of rejection, a fear of not being in the up position, a fear of not being in control, the fear of not knowing everything that's going on with them. And so, the person who's being berated and allayed into to this kind of argument, well, here's my phone, here's my password to my phone. And so the one who creates the circular argument, they're constantly looking for stuff. They're on that phone all the time. They're trying to find out what they've been up to. Did you talk to the person you say you talked to today? So it just keeps that pot stirring, because again, it's about fear of losing control. It's a fear of rejection, fear of abandonment. And so they just have to keep this tight grip on the relationship. And they don't realize what they're doing is that they're pushing the person away. And so, over time, some people just wake up and go, I don't want to do this anymore. And then they don't understand why,
Right. Wow, this is a painful thing to think about,
Well,
because it's a person that's operating out of fear, which we all experience.
Right.
But when you let fear rule everything, then eventually your fears are going to come true, because you allowed fear to be the boss.
Right. And these are all fear-based decisions that we make. And I know me, when I make a fear-based decision, it's usually a knee-jerk. It's usually emotional in nature. And then I have to go back, make amends, because I said or did something stupid, because that fear-based decision that we make. And we've all done it. It's just the key to it is being aware of it. Am I reacting to this out of fear, or am I using my noggin to think through some things, to be a little more rational about my decision making?
Yeah, and I think, Dick, hopefully someone's out there that may have a relationship with someone that has this circular argument plan, action, that they'll recognize it. And
Right.
even though the person that's perhaps doing the circular or initiates it, if if the partner understands it, right? Understands what's happening, can that be helpful to the one that's beginning it? Will there be some awareness there?
Well, the one who's being done to, they can be aware all day. And if they're confrontational in addressing this issue with the circular person, it's just going to, typically it just blows up even more, because the one doing the initiating doesn't want to own anything, doesn't want to acknowledge anything, doesn't want to say, you're right, I was wrong. And so they get even more ramped up and more angry about where this is all coming from. You're not hearing me. You're not listening to me. You don't know how hurt I am by your behavior and your actions. So you constantly get that pushback from the person that's doing this. It's nuts is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy.
It's painful to even talk about because it's detrimental to the relationship.
Well, it's more common than you think. I mean, people hide it well in public. They have their public images, but behind closed doors, there's lots of folks that do this type of arguing.
Yeah. So another thought is it's a gain to the person?
It really is. Because what's the payoff for them? Well, the payoff is that I get to, accuse you and bait you in, get all ramped up, say all these horrible things about you, and then you end up, begging and pleading, I'm loyal to you, I'll never leave you. And then you get the silent treatment for 2 hours afterwards, and the person initiates is loving it. So it really is a game to them.
Because they want to win.
They want to win. They want to stay in the up position. And again, it soothes their fears of abandonment, because if you're groveling to them, then they got you exactly where they want you.
When you play a game, sometimes it's, and just reading some of these notes, Dick, it's like the person that begins the game or begins the argument, they might be bored, or they may just be wanting attention. Maybe everything is going along okay, and then all of a sudden they just get bored and want to do this. Is that the case?
Many of them are adrenaline junkies.
Because it builds their adrenaline when they are doing this.
And it keeps the trauma, it keeps it in a trauma relationship where, it traumatizes the other person. And the person initiating thinking they're the ones that are traumatized victims in this. But it traumatizes everybody is what it does, because it's just so unhealthy in the relationship.
Even if children are watching this or other friends or whatever, it is traumatizing.
Yeah. Well, we hear the comment drama queens. Well, there's drama kings too, that do this too. It's not, I think it's, the sex doesn't matter, but whoever's initiating this is just really very destructive in their behavior towards it. And like I said, they're adrenaline junkies. They like the high. They like the rush. They like to be the center of attention. And they like that adrenaline flowing through the system that's there.
Yeah, which would answer why you would call it a game, because it's a sport.
It is a sport.
Yeah. What about inflicting pain? It's they just enjoy inflicting pain? That's terrible.
Well, but I think the old saying, hurt people hurt people. The initiator of this typically is a deeply, deeply hurt person. Well, if I'm going to hurt, you're going to hurt, And so the inflicting of the pain kind of levels the playing field in their mind, And so, I'm not the only one here feeling horrible about the relationship or horrible about myself or any of those things. So it is. They almost get a pleasure out of inflicting pain on other people. I mean, that's how sick this is. And
especially someone that they say they care about, or just anybody?
In the context of the relationship is there. I mean, some people are just, doesn't matter who you are. I mean, they're just naturally they enjoy inflicting pain on people, and then really have no conscience about it. Have no ability to express empathy for what they've done. And so there's a little bit of pleasure to them that, karma, kind of thinking, what goes around comes around kind of thing. And, if you look at back in the Old Testament, New Testament times, when people had to travel or had to go to court when somebody was suing somebody or something like that, they traveled as a party together. And the reason for that was that by the time they got to the court, typically they had resolved their conflict with each other because they worked it out on the way. That's a healthy relationship. That's a reasonable relationship. Here, you just don't get that. You don't get let's work this out. Let's be reasonable. Let's see where we can meet each other's needs in a healthy way now. But they're just not willing to do that.
Yeah, because it's a game.
Right.
Yeah, it's not about helping the relationship through solving conflict. It's about inflicting pain and being the winner, never ever wanting to look bad. I mean, this is hard, Dick.
Yeah. Well, you think about it, pride is involved a lot here too.
So fear and pride.
Yeah, pride makes us artificial. Humility makes us real in that sense. So when I'm prideful, then, I'm not going to let my guard down. I'm not going to let you see the inside of me. But when there's humility and vulnerability, it makes me a genuine person in this whole process. And that's what you don't get here. Because that pride is so, I'm not going to be in the down position. I'm always going to have you under my thumb, the belief of that. And so, you never become real until, obviously God can change that. But, and usually it takes a 2x4 upside the head, but he does that sometimes.
Which you can do.
Mm-hmm.
So, we were talking about pride and fear being at the root of the person that instigates the circular argument.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the goal of the person instigating it is to create what you call fog, which is fear, obligation, and guilt. Mm-hmm. So they're operating from the root of fear, but they want to instill fear in you.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Well, the fear of leaving. They want you to guilt you into obligation that's there. We all are obligated to do things in life, but when I'm made to feel obligated, I tend to back away a little bit from that. Let me think about it. Can I call you tomorrow? If the feeling's still there to do it, I tend to act on it. But if it tends to go away, I don't, because have I been manipulated? And so that fear, obligation, and guilt all fit right in there together. And that's what they create, that kind of atmosphere here. And so...
And I love that acronym, FOG.
It's simple, isn't it?
Yeah, because, when you think about fog, you can't see very clearly. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're trying to do. As part of the game is to make things very unclear.
That's exactly what they're doing. So you get guilt-tripped into staying. You get guilt-tripped into obligation. You get guilt-tripped into all these things. And yet the person it's being done to wants to get out of the relationship so badly many times.
Mm-hmm. And they feel stuck.
Yeah. And that's, again, we're back to the circle over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. So it's about the FOG method. And it's also about using intimidation. Mm-hmm. And I love what this says right now. I don't necessarily love it, but it helps me understand. Intimidation to condition you. So they're really like conditioning you to get what they want. Yep. You said it earlier, manipulation. Well,
and it is. It's a form of Pavlov's dog. Every time the bell rang, he salivated. He's going to get food, and so again, you can condition an individual almost to the point where it becomes their normal response to the situation. And that they beg, they plead, I'm loyal to you, I'll do anything. And then the silent treatment comes and they get to enjoy that over and over again. And so it's the same old fight, argument, circle. Things settle down maybe for a day or two, but after that it picks right back up where they left off.
Wow.
It's a mess.
Yeah, it's hard. And I guess it's hard for me to think about another human being treated this way. Mm-hmm. So it's also about recreating and replaying unresolved issues with a parent?
Many times it is,
Yeah.
So let's use the cheating as an example. Husband cheats on wife or maybe even doesn't, but, gets accused of, my father cheated on my mother. You're a cheater. I know you cheated on me. And so that, obviously that person hadn't resolved her issues with her dad. And so we project onto other people. We just create the scenario that we grew up in, we create it into our adult life and our life where we are now. And so they will use the unresolved issues many times and bring it right into the marriage. And again, they don't trust, and
Well, you said it, hurt people. They just take it to a new level.
yeah. And again, they don't see what they're doing many times because they feel justified in it, and they attack, they get defensive, and then they exploit in the process there. So the person that they're doing this to is just kind of walking around shaking their head, going, I don't know what's going on here, and they're wanting to get out so quickly. And that whole cheating thing is just a great example of the circular argument that goes on and on and on. And even, let's say the person did cheat, and you're 5 years removed from it, they're still having the same argument. Yeah. They haven't forgiven, they haven't let go, they haven't been done with it. They play the wounded person over and over again. And so there's no effort to restore the marriage for true reconciliation and true healing in the relationship.
Yeah, they don't even understand what that means, do they? It's about keeping the person distracted from focusing on the real issues in the relationship. So the circular argument keeps everything distracted.
Right.
And it really just takes everything away from reality, from truth.
It does. And, again, because what does it do to the person that's being done to? Well, they're living in fear. Oh my gosh, is she going to, or he going to explode again? Oh no, they just took a deep sigh. Here it comes. What do I need to do? What do they want from me? And so, again, the person that's happened to can never focus on the real issues at hand. And the real issue at hand is this circular argument, this dysfunctional communication that begins to take place over and over again. And so, there is no hunkering down and let's deal with what's really going on here. I see this in my office, 33 years where it's the same argument every time they come in. I go, time out, I said, one, y'all are real good at this, but two, we haven't done anything. It's our 6th, 7th session because they keep bringing it back up. Wears me out because I want to help them get the skill set to move forward. But if they're not willing to, it's not going to change. So.
And you say they. Can one be willing and the other not?
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's what's hard.
Yeah.
Too.
Well, it takes two people to fix a marriage.
Yeah.
Even if somebody's done something stupid, it's still going to take two people to fix it.
Yeah.
And
are we going to talk about how to do that on the show?
I'll give a couple things at the end.
Okay. So it's almost keeping the spotlight on them, not on the other person, right?
Mm-hmm. No, it's keeping the spotlight on them.
Okay, so it's keeping the spotlight on the one that begins the argument.
Because what's this really all about?
Them.
Right. Me.
Them winning the game.
Uh-huh.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And it's keeping the spotlight on them because it would be horrible if the spotlight left them. They're not the center of attention anymore.
It's interesting, Dick, that they want this attention, they want the spotlight, and if they don't have that, then so why? I mean, they're operating out of fear, they're operating out of pride, but they have to be the center of attention. They have to have the spotlight on them. So when I'm fearful, I want to hide.
Right.
So what's the difference here?
Well, back to the game. It's a game to them. They enjoy it. They get played. There's a payoff for them to keeping the spotlight on them. And they're the center of attention. It's all about them. We're discussing them. The other person is begging and pleading and trying to do whatever they can to apologize 100 times for something they may not even done. And so, again, it keeps it all feeding back into their ego of, this is all about me and what you've done to me. and it's just a accumulation of years of other things that probably have happened to this person. So, in a sense, your heart goes out to both people. Especially the one that's being done to you, just want to go run away, as fast as you can. The other person, you want to help them realize that it ain't right, and it's not how you treat people. It's not how you have a healthy relationship in there. And so there's a payoff for having the spotlight on them. There's a payoff in everything that we've talked about here for them. And they're getting something out of it constantly, or perceive they're getting something out of it. And I think more than anything, it's being in the up position, the power position, and you're down here.
Well, it's kind of like if for lack of a better word, the innocent one, maybe gets a promotion or something really good happens to them, the circular argument's going to begin probably because the spotlight's on them and they don't want the spotlight on the other person.
They don't.
So there's no congratulation, there might be a false one, but then they make everything about them. Is that right?
Yeah, it may last about that long.
That congratulations.
Yeah. You think about, we're coming up on the holidays, and a lot of times these individuals come in and ruin the holiday celebration, the family time, because again, it's about turning it all back on them. and so, when that takes place, it just destroys everything. Now, we only got a couple minutes left, but, I do want to throw a couple nuggets out there. How do you resolve this? How do you get to the point where this kind of thing stops? Well, you can put up with it. You can just roll over.
You'll probably have a stroke or heart attack eventually.
Eventually you will, probably, yeah. I think sometimes it's something as simple as beginning to talk to the person in words of gratitude and appreciation and gratefulness. Because the tendency is in your mind, you're just thinking, oh, God, they're crazy. They're nuts. They're this, they're that. But what if I turned the table and began to say, you know what I really admire about you? You know what I really appreciate about you? What does that do to an individual?
Softens them.
It does. Well, you think about Jesus and how he was constantly affirming people. He affirmed the thief on the cross. He said, today you'll be with me in paradise. He affirmed the woman that was caught in adultery. I don't condemn you. He affirmed Zacchaeus. He was constantly affirming people that were, way down at the bottom of the pecking scale. So I think sometimes you bring that into a relationship. That's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to affirm them. I don't want to appreciate them. Look how they've treated me all these years. Well, sometimes taking the high road has a huge payoff down the road. And it really doesn't give them anything to swing at either when you're doing those things.
It might take them back.
Yeah, yeah.
How do I fight that?
Exactly. And so it's a disarming technique that's there, I think. So I have found that one to be a very simple one that you can use. But like I said, when you've been wounded so deeply by this person, it's kind of one of the last things you want to do. But it works, and we want to get in that vengeance mode and, hope they drop off the face of the earth.
Dick, we have a few seconds. Would this type of education help at all in a gratitude, say, I appreciate you for what you do, but what you're doing to me is not acceptable?
Probably not on the front end you're going to get a good response from that, So I would take it small steps. The confrontation with this person is always they're going to be going into the victim mode.
Yeah. Wow, that's a toughie. Well, I guess it is time to go. I'm looking forward to next time, and I hope you will join us next time on Today's Family here with Dick Forbes and Cindy Smith.
Take care and God bless. Thank you.